Well, Doctor Who returns to horror in State of Decay. So it's a vampire story, and but it's significant even beyond the ideas of going back to elements of horror. Not totally in the mood and sense of the Fourth Doctor's earlier outings into that genre, but it's very significant into the lore of the Time Lords. You get a little more of this, and boy, I tell you, once again, there's all kinds of material. If someone was a little lacking in what to do with Doctor Who, here's something you could delve into. No? Okay. So, going on their tour of E-Space, not that they wanted to, although in a way it kind of works out for Romana. She doesn't have to go back to Gallifrey just yet. But anyway, they come to this planet and discover this. It's all very medieval looking. And once again, yes, of course, there's all kinds of props and materials you can make use of, ready-made to go for a story like this. But it's this cool element of where this little village, and they're surrounding by, they're surrounding a castle, which is this giant tower. And of course, a lot of the things about the towers is, hey, what does that remind you of? No, not that. And becomes very significant to the plot of the whole story. It's actually a rocket ship. But it's a very old. I can't remember. Did they have it like it was like 1,000 or a couple of? I don't think it was that old. I'm trying to remember exactly how this pans out. But anyway, that's the scene. It's like the simplistic village. You got the peasants, and they're lorded over by the lords. So there's three of them, and you have Zargo, Camilla, and Alcon, I believe is how I'm trying to remember. I'm always getting that messed up. But anyway, I guess Zargo and Camilla are the king and queen, and Alcon is their, I don't know, what was he, the counselor or something like that. But in a lot of ways, he seems to be the smartest of the three and is really in charge. And they're vampires. I mean, you just look at them, and they keep selecting, chosen people from the peasants, and some of them become security personnel, guards and what have you, and others become food. And they keep talking about the Great One, and that's what takes you into more lore about Time Lords overall, and getting into their history, very distant history concerning Rassilon. And so of course Dr. Romana K9 show up. They don't know what's going on. They're looking about, and little do they know that they have a stowaway. So Adric pops out. K9 confronts him, but Adric says, "Well, I'll just leave, and that'll solve the problem." So he does. So he gets taken in by one of the little families there in the village, and then Alcon sees him and is, well, it's really creepy, but he's like, "Well, who's this young man?" I mean, hey, come on, it's... So he takes Adric back, and you're going to be my special little pet, and with intentions of making him another vampire with their group and all that, instead of just feeding him to the Great One. Meanwhile, the Dr. Romana, they investigated. They quickly discover that the tower is actually a rocket ship, and they're figuring this out. Then they stumble upon a cave with all this technology, and there's the resistance to the Lords, and they've found this technology. Turns out the ship had crashed on the planet sometime earlier, and these guys just sort of took it over, and for generations they've been ruling these people and feeding off of them all this time, while their ship just it just became the castle. So this guy was looking at it, and I was like, hey, some of the interior doesn't look, that's right, it's not meant to actually be a castle. So you, and for the most part, this is all studio shot stuff, but it works for the narrative as it is. You get a few shots of the Doctor and Romana running around in the woods being chased by bats and all that type of stuff. But it's also this interesting suggesting that this is the actual inspiration for all the vampire stories that the Doctor says. A lot of planets, they all have this vampire myth in their background, and so now we know why. And it turns out the Great One is one of the original vampires, who's apparently a giant, and they battled the Time Lords back in the olden days when Rassilon was young, so young. And they just swarmed the universe. They were spreading all over the place, and it was kind of like a plague of vampirism, And so the Time Lord said, well, we got to put a stop to that. So eventually Rassilon comes up with the idea of bow ships, where they would shoot these shafts of steel into the hearts of these giant vampires. And ultimately the Time Lords were victorious. But then when they were making a count of all the top vampires' bodies, one was missing, the king of the vampires. So what happened? Where did he go? Well, he snuck away with some of his servants he must have picked up from Earth. So that's the weird thing about this. You got to keep in mind about it's a long time ago for the Doctor, yet at the same time it's something that happened in the future for Earth. So it's how timelines cross and all that sort of stuff. So the king of the vampires, what have you, the Great One, got them to help him escape into E-space, which from all intents and purposes, I'm assuming he did this deliberately. So it seems the great vampire knew more about exospace than the Doctor does, because they're still trying to figure out how do you get back out of here. And this guy did it, but they had to kill him because of what he was about to do. He's about to awaken and all this stuff, and they're talking about, well, we can get back to the real universe and rule again, so it would be a new age of vampires conquering worlds and all that stuff. Well, they didn't have a bow ship, so the Doctor basically activates their own ship and shoots it into the atmosphere, and then it turns around and comes back down. And wouldn't you know it, the aim was just right. and it impales into the heart of the great vampire. He dies, and so since the other three were dependent on him, they all shriveled up and rotted right in front of their faces. So, yeah, there's a consequence for that eternal youth of vampirism. Plus, your breath smells like roadkill because you got to drink blood and crap like that. So, boy, there's a lot of consequences for the eternal youth upside thing. Anyway. So there you go. There's some scenes, where Adric's being a complete selfish asshole, but it was all a ruse, in the hopes that he could save Romana from being sacrificed. But it didn't work. He wasn't much. Turns out K9 was. They get him in there, and he was just zapping everybody. So the Doctor could get, into the capsule of the rocket and launch it. Good thing it was able to fire up again after being dormant for God knows how many centuries. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they should have wrote something in there that he had some mechanism or whatever he pulls out of the TARDIS and to re-energize it or something. But well, whatever. What are you gonna do? And so there you go. So it lays the groundwork of there's this backstory of the vampires and the Time Lords. And one could wonder if there would be a means about restarting the vampirism and where it started and how it became, or was it just this one species of these giants who spread it? To delve into that and to delve into the Time Lord's past. They're time travelers. You could do it, but at this point, it's probably best to just leave it alone. Because Doctor Who is not in good hands these days. No. So anyway, they leave saying, we got to get Adric back to the Starliner and dump him off because, I don't want this little asshole around. Well, that's not going to happen. But anyway, so there you go. A vampire story for Doctor Who, albeit very space-aged and whatnot. I do recall hearing some. I thought that Terrence Dicks didn't like the title or something. I can't remember what it was, or maybe I'm confusing it with another one. Didn't want that. There's certainly. I mean, look, this is true of all vampire stories about the sexual undertones of it, and it looks like there's almost like a a lesbian lust from Camilla to Romana, and then of course all contact. So, oh well, they get bored after a while. How many centuries? Stuff like that, and I'm not sure, but I thought I'd heard somewhere that there's a comical scene where the Doctor and Romana are held prisoner in the cell, and then they realize that they need to know what happened between Rassilon and the vampires. And it turns out that the Type 40 TARDIS has the records in it that Romana says, hey, I think Type 40 TARDIS have those. And the Doctor's, oh, I got a Type 40. Yeah, that's right. So he's got to dash back over there and read up on what they've got. But they got to get out, so he tackles the guard, and they're about to leave. But then this other guy from the Resistance shows up to rescue them and throws the door open very quickly, and it hits the Doctor in the face. And so it's just supposed to be silly, and yet apparently he really hit Tom Baker in the face. So plus other stories was like, Tom Baker and Lalla Ward weren't getting along by then, and oh boy. But if that's true, which I'm sure it was because they ultimately divorced, but I didn't really see it in the show, so it looks like they did pretty good, So anyway, yeah, it's a good one. For vampire stories, it's weird because it's in outer space and it involves all that stuff and it continuing on their e-space business. But yeah, State of Decay, and boy, does it decay. Yeah, those the price of vampirism. Boy, do they rot pretty quick right there in front of you. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.